To me.
To me. Now, obviously, we're not talking about the Jackal this week.
What if we could?
But there's no more. We watched all of it, and there's nothing left.
Since last week and this week, they didn't make more.
They did not make more. We're waiting on season 2 of the TV show, so we have pivoted. We're doing a pivot. We're going to talk about HBO's The Rehearsal. Now, we're just going to assume you saw season 1. If you haven't, you should. Season 1 was phenomenal. It was a mixture of reality television and just absolute absurdity, and I don't even know how it worked, and I think I'm still confused about it. And I appreciate that about it.
That was an endorsement.
That was an endorsement of season 1.
I also endorse it.
Season 2. This was 34 minutes long.
Okay.
Which I think is important to note because that is a typical short ep, I would call, of a television show. Or a medium-sized ep, I guess. Short might be a 20 and under, like a Shoresy.
Yeah, it's a good HBO comedy amount of time.
It came out of the gates swinging. It came out the gates hard. And then I could not believe how long the episode felt. And I don't know if I mean that in a bad way just yet, because I don't even know how I feel about that first episode. But let's talk about that first scene. What was the first scene? Like no credits, cold opening. Where do we go?
Oh boy. On the spot, it was a recreation of a plane crash.
It was a simulated plane crash between two pilots discussing an approach and how the GPS was disagreeing with the compass and led to a crash. And then our boy shows up in the flames in the simulated with this ridiculous 360-degree screen that's around this cockpit that he's built in. What's a simulated cockpit? It was phenomenal. And right off the bat, I was like, oh, we're doing something different this season. We're doing the same thing, but we're doing something different.
Yeah. So this is of course Nathan Fielder, who you may know from The Rehearsal season 1 if you followed your advice previously, or for The Curse, which we haven't seen.
We have not seen yet, which we should talk about at the end of the season.
Nathan For You, which we've both seen sporadic.
Yes, and it's
episodes.
incredible.
And he is a singular type of guy. And this is a guy who is absolutely playing with the currency that, such as it is, that he's earned over the years. Because I got to be honest with you, we were about 10 minutes in, and I thought to myself, should we have turned this off?
If he did not have the, as you say, currency that he has, I think I might have.
It's possible. If I was watching it with you, maybe we ride it out and we see what's going on. If I was watching it with Anna and she says, I'm not having a nice time, it's absolutely possible. But
that's one, especially with a wife viewing, I would probably turn off and then have to go back to on a late night.
We assume we are in capable hands, and of course we're going to continue watching because through the full 34 minutes, I'm not sure exactly how many jokes there were. They were definitely...
I laughed uncomfortably a lot.
Yeah, the moments of awkward laughter or cringe reactions outnumbered those punchline moments by a factor of 10, hundreds. This was a wild ep, and it's just, this is a guy who is in constant conversation with himself. For better or for worse, I think it's riveting. But we're talking about when I watched it, I thought a lot about wrestling, professional wrestling, and how professional wrestling is always at its absolute best when you don't know if the two people in the ring actually hate each other.
That's right.
Or if they're acting. It's best when they blur that line through some.
This entire show blurs the line of whether they're all in on it.
Who's in on what? Where are we in on? At what point Does the work become the shoot, or the shoot become the work, or many times doubling back on itself? I also thought a lot about Andy Kaufman.
Yeah. I was going to say this very much feels like this is a comedian who's playing with the entire field that they have found. They are pulling out all of their tools, and they've found the hammer. They know how to hit a nail, very good with that hammer, but now they want to try and hit the nail with the handle of the hammer instead of the head of the hammer, just to see how that might work. And maybe he got that to work, and so now he's like, okay, what about this other smaller screwdriver I'm going to hit the nail with, the tip of it, and see if I can somehow get this to work. And he's definitely stretching what the idea of comedy is. I don't know if this entire episode is a comedy, and maybe that is the whole reason for it. And he was definitely exploring that. He was discussing that. What am I doing here? And we might be watching him having a crisis as he makes this show.
I don't think he's having a mental breakdown in these episodes, but I mean, that was pretty much kind of the conclusion of season 1.
Yeah.
And it's not just the idea of the hammer analogy that you used. It's also he's trying to do it in a way that's going to comment back on how other people are writing about him using the hammer.
Sure.
Because I do think you're talking about the first time we see him is with his little laptop thing.
Yeah.
In the flames like that, and I couldn't help but think of the discourse from last season. There's a lot of folks mad online about, is this manipulative? Is this in good integrity, journalism, entertainment, whatever, to take these people who may not know that they are in on the joke,
sure,
and exploit them like that? There was a lot of discussion about that. I'm not sure how worthwhile it is to rehash that or hash it in the first place, but I don't think it was a coincidence that the first time we see him is with his back behind him, all those flames, looking like he's the devil himself.
Taking notes on this crash.
After what we all just watched and then discussed in season 1.
Okay. So, we've witnessed this plane crash, which I found very funny. Not the plane crash itself, but it turning into the show.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but what is your funniest plane crash?
Well, none of them. It's not the plane crash that's funny. It's obviously the juxtaposition of him showing up in the flames and this being a comedy show with no opening, just this cold opening of you having this very tense discussion between two pilots, but also clearly being acted out by, I would say, either purposefully bad actors or not very talented actors.
If I expanded it to helicopters, do you still have the same answer?
That I don't have a funny helicopter crash? Yeah.
Okay.
It's never the tragedy that's funny. It's the time plus tragedy, right? It's the exploration of it.
So that
might be my only laugh of the episode. And like only real honest laugh that I was like, this is funny. Then he goes and he talks to the ex-head of the NTSF, the National Transportation Safety Board, yeah. NTSB.
Who's a real guy. And they're discussing real plane crashes where real planes crashed and real people died.
Yes.
All of that is true.
He has a sit-down.
Show.
He pulls a pile of evidence out, which at first I'm like, is this the joke? That he's like, I'm gaining his trust. And he pulls out this evidence. And I go, is he just pulling this out as a, like, I've been gathering evidence. Ha ha, here it is. And then he reads from his phone. But no, he goes through them. They're all logs of actual airplane crashes that have happened, or I believe to be actual. We don't fucking know in this show. And at this point, it is a documentary. He is discussing what he thinks is an issue with pilot safety, which is the communication between a pilot and her first mate. And it's a very real problem. And the ex-chief of the NTSB is like, yeah, I've pointed this out before. This is an issue. I've made recommendations and they have not taken them. And that's maybe 7 minutes of the episode. So then he goes on to say, all right, I'm going to like discover this further. I'm going to pick a first mate, not a captain.
Well, it's at this point where you think, okay, that's your hook into the
Yes.
last season. Because what we need to do is get a couple of pilots to be able to practice this interaction before they're actually in the plane. And that sounds very familiar to our
That's the rehearsal.
excursion in season 1.
Yep.
So that was very grounding, pun unintended.
Okay. All right. Don't know what to think about that joke. So he finds this first mate, this
On LinkedIn.
engineer on LinkedIn, who seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he goes to follow him to work. Gets in a little bit of the joking in that he obviously can't follow this guy into the employee area of the airport because he has absolutely zero clearance and didn't plan for this at all. And then realizes he maybe should talk to United Airlines about wanting to follow this guy and explore his day-to-day. We get a little piece of rehearsal. That was a real laugh.
That was a laugh, yeah.
That was a laugh where he's having a conversation with the media relations person of United Airlines, and he's not doing very well in this conversation. He's clearly having a hard time hiding the fact that this is a comedy and not a documentary. And then he starts walking down the hallway and you hear echoes and you realize that he's paid an actress in the other room to be the person on this phone call. And then he makes the actual phone call, which goes even worse because they just don't want to talk to him. And they're like, you'd have to talk to my boss, whose number I won't give you, is basically the reply.
That was another genuine laugh, though.
Yeah.
You don't have your boss's phone number was very funny.
That was funny and absolutely just real. And she was like, no, I don't talk to them, which awesome. And then cue the biggest moment of the show, which made me know we're in for a ride. He decides to, as he does many times, take all the money that HBO gave him and he builds an airport wing in a warehouse, a ridiculously large set that looks very good. There was a very funny scene where he sent in a bunch of his team to take measurements and pictures of the area of the airport so that they could recreate it. And there's another couple of funny scenes where they are following pilots around and following different people around the airport that they've picked who they're going to manipulate or not manipulate. They're going to clone, I guess, or model themselves after.
Using the
and so they're
fielder
sitting
method.
next to him, asking him questions and like practicing their mannerisms. And he makes a amazing reproduction of the wing of the airport. And some of me is not sure that wasn't what he filmed the beginning scenes in. Like maybe he never was in the airport in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, well, this gets back to the pro wrestling Andy Kaufman of it all. We have absolutely no idea, but the set that he built is bigger than anything he did in season 1.
Yes, it's bigger than the bar he built.
The way they frame it up is he can't get into the room where the pilots go to hang out before flying and not talk to each other. So he says the only logical thing to do is spend so much money.
I'm finding more laughs though because that part was funny, but also he goes, based on this sketch, and there's like a crayon sketch done by the first mate of what the lobby, what the captain.
He's not an artist.
Yes,
he does Legos in his spare time.
He does do Legos. That was another moment. So we get a little bit of this pilot interaction. We get a very funny scene where we find out that they don't even meet until the airplane. So the co-pilot and the pilot don't even actually meet each other or introduce each other in the captain's room that he's designed this entire set to reproduce. But they don't talk until later when they're on the airplane and they say hello to each other for the first time.
This might have been my favorite part of the app because he can't go into the room, so he decides to build this grandiose, incredibly large and expensive, and he talks about the travel costs that they've got people on standby in case they have to go and follow their pilot or whoever.
Right.
They build it all out, and they
So he had to hire a travel agent to be on the ready to hire them a ticket in case they had to follow someone onto the plane.
They basically run the simulation. They go through. They now sit down in this room that they can go into because it's a fake room. And they just sort of sit there and not interact at all.
Nothing. Yeah.
We get to the end of it. Nathan Fielder's like, did that feel natural? Was that normal? He was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. So we learn nothing.
We learn absolutely nothing.
He needs to go in the room. He thinks he needs to go in the room. He can't go in the room. I don't know how much this set costs. $1 million? I have no idea.
A lot.
He spends all this money to build it out, runs his version of the simulation, and comes back with nothing. Yeah. And the
404 error, webpage not found.
It was absolutely absurdist, hilarious.
This show might be funnier than I remember it.
And then he doesn't want you to think about that until after.
No.
So Nathan Fielder yanks you as the audience off into some new direction
which is where this episode went crazy. I can't believe all this happened in 34 minutes. This felt so long. So then the show entirely pivots. And we find out that this co-pilot, this first mate, has a girlfriend who's kind of long distance. He sees once every 4 months.
He says it's his girlfriend.
Yes,
I'm not sure.
That's fair.
I'm not sure.
They have a conversation on the phone that doesn't sound like she really wants to talk to him much. He has a conversation with Nathan Fielder about how he doesn't want to upset her by being overbearing or over-controlling or over-demanding.
As Fielder's laying on his bed like a 13-year-old girl.
Because they might find out, or like she might pick someone else at Starbucks where she works, a customer who's nicer and maybe better than him, and she'll leave him for that person, which is, I guess, every teenager's version of a relationship.
It seemed plausible to me.
Yeah. It was insane. And then we step away from that for a little while, and that's when I think we did the simulation in the actual like airport room. And then they decide to fly in the girlfriend. Mm-hmm. They have an awkward good to see you moment.
They do a rehearsal.
They do a little side hug
in the cockpit.
Yeah, but before this, I just mean when they first got together and they were like, she first sees him outside the like rehearsal studio. They had a very like awkward. Now, granted, that could just be how do you say hi to your significant other on front of a camera.
Yeah.
But they are clearly very early in their relationship, if you'd call it that. Then he decides to go. And by he, I mean Nathan Fielder decides to go, hey, do you want to have a conversation about your relationship with your girlfriend? And he's like, I would do that if she's okay with it, which good on him for consent. But I feel like I don't know what kind of consent you need for a conversation about your relationship. But
you should get consent in everything that
Nathan
you do.
Fielder, as an in-betweener, goes and says, hey, are you okay with this conversation? She says, yeah, that would be fine. BT Dubs, are you okay with dressing like a pilot for this? And she says, fair game. They dress up as pilots. They meet in the cockpit and they have this relationship conversation. And the co-pilot has a tell for when if he's feeling uncomfortable, he's supposed to grab the controls of the airplane and move them around to kind of signal to Nathan when he's feeling uncomfortable with the conversation. They have a very realistic, wonderful relationship conversation that establishes absolutely nothing, except for that he doesn't feel comfortable with customers of hers that hang out with her and buy her expensive gifts, and she thinks it's a friendship thing.
The hug that they have at the end of that is more awkward than the hug that they had at the start.
Yes. And that's where the show ends. He's just discussing how conversations are uncomfortable and you're putting yourself on the line and you're terrified that The results in the case of a pilot and another pilot might be you getting fired or getting frozen out of your job. And in the case of this co-pilot is terrified of his girlfriend, and he's afraid that if he squeezes too tight, he'll lose her. And I think that's where we're at. But I have no idea how many twists this show is going to go to from there.
I want to highlight one more scene that I
Yes.
really enjoyed. All through this, there's a through line that Fielder would like to do something of substance. Something
He is
worthwhile,
exploring it
something
and himself.
helpful.
Oh, the clown scene is what you want to...
No,
oh, my God.
No.
We didn't talk about that?
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the clown scene. You can talk about the clown scene.
We should talk about the clown scene.
I'm talking about a different scene where... So he's wrestling with himself with the idea of, can a comedian
Yes.
be taken seriously, and can a comedian stop doing jokes for long enough to do something serious, something real, when they have the power, the time, the budget, etc. And towards the end of the episode, he says something to the effect of, I'm sure whoever tried flight the first time, whoever made the first airplane, got laughed at.
Yeah.
And sets up some
Which they
videos
did.
of like the Wright brothers
Yeah.
and other other people attempting to fly,
It shows a couple articles that the news had printed about those people, literally mocking them.
putting himself in the direct lineage of the Wright brothers, saying, yes, you may be laughing now, audience, you may be laughing at me right now, however, you laughed at the Wright brothers when they tried to make their plane, and now what are you doing for your summer vacation? Are you flying anywhere, you hypocritical
He-
It was amazing, and I cannot tell how serious that is, how tongue-in-cheek that is, how much of that is just like my real actual feelings dialed up from 9 to 10 or 1 to 10. I have no idea.
Well, you have to wonder, as a person who makes their career as a comedian, who travels a lot, the issues with airplane safety, especially some that have been in the news recently, are probably very important to you.
We didn't even broach that. This is coming on the heels of 2 months of
Yeah.
lots of plane crashes that I don't know when it was filmed, but could not have known anything about, given the time frame. Very prescient.
And it also, he does this whole scene with the clown, which is a great metaphor, but he has a clown who has a van on top of him, and he's screaming for help, and everyone's laughing because he's a clown.
He's honking his horn. He's doing clown things to get attention.
Yes. He's trying to get their attention, so he's honking his little clown horn, and everyone sees him and is laughing, and it takes a little while for them to realize that he is actually in danger. And I think that's a pretty good, apt metaphor. And it's not even a metaphor at that point. It's literally what he's saying. And he can someone take me seriously about this thing? And he also several times says, and can I make this entertaining? This is the part where I wonder if he's going through something. And I don't mean like a complete breakdown, but I do wonder if he's very much, as he does this, as a artful commentary on his own project, he's like, can I even do what I am trying to do right now? So I do find it very fascinating.
At the end of that clown scene is him telling all of the actors
They can all
that
go
they've
home.
got
Yeah.
it. We can all go home. This has been a rehearsal.
Yeah.
Even within the context, we know it's filmed, it's a television show, but even in the context of the television show, he's telling us it's a television show inside the television show.
I love him squeezing as many rehearsals into things as possible. I wish he had had a rehearsal to talk to the head of the NTSB before, and for all we know, he did, and he just cut it. But I do like him sneaking in that little rehearsal with the United phone worker was very funny. Yeah, I don't know. This season could crash and burn super hard.
Come on.
That was not intended.
Come on.
Sorry, that was not. This season could go poorly, and I think I would still suggest watching it.
Yeah,
This could go so bad, and I still would be like, this isn't interesting enough of a piece that we shouldn't give him another season. But you should watch this for the audacity of the attempt, the artistic just piece of it in general. Like sometimes art can be so bad, but you're getting something out of that just in general.
I firmly believe it's going to turn out good. That has
That's
more
my
to do
hope.
with me
Your-
watching
your
previous
trust
Nathan
and faith.
Field. Yeah.
And I also agree, and I'm just like, I'm leaning on a ledge here and just going, no matter what, I think I would still be in on this season. I mean, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I have faith in what this will do, and I would sit through it anyways, just for the human piece of it alone.
All right.
And now we're going to watch 3 hours of Andor. See you next week. Did you want to stay golden or anything?
Oh, yeah, stay golden.
Cool.